The call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Saturday night in October. I knew it was bad news before I even looked at the caller ID. Nobody calls at that hour with good news. Miss Chin. The voice was professional, controlled. This is Officer Martinez with the Metro Police Department. Are you the owner of a 2021 Audi A4? License plate number came 847. My stomach dropped. I'd bought that car 6 months ago after 3 years of saving every overtime dollar, every bonus, every tax refund. It was the first truly nice thing I'd ever owned, and I'd been so careful with it that I still had the plastic protector on the floor mats. Yes, that's my car. What happened? The vehicle was involved in a single-car collision at approximately 2:15 a.m. The driver hit a utility pole on Riverside Drive. He's been taken to Memorial Hospital. The driver. My heart stopped. I'd lent the car to my brother Jake for what was supposed to be a quick dinner with friends. Is he okay? He's conscious and stable. However, I need to inform you that alcohol appears to be a factor in the collision. We'll need you to come to the scene to discuss the vehicle. I threw on clothes and drove to Riverside Drive, my hands shaking on the steering wheel of my old Honda Civic, the car I'd kept as backup transportation. When I arrived, I couldn't process what I was seeing. My beautiful silver Audi was wrapped around a telephone pole like a piece of crumpled paper. The front end was completely destroyed, the roof caved in on the driver's side, and there was glass and metal debris scattered across 50 feet of asphalt. Officer Martinez walked over as I stood there staring at the wreckage. Miss Chin, I'm sorry about your vehicle. Is there any chance it can be repaired? He looked at the twisted metal that used to be my car. Ma'am, I'm honestly surprised the driver survived. This was a high-speed collision. I felt nauseous. How fast was he going? Based on the damage and skid marks, we estimate around 65 miles per hour in a 35 zone. 65 in a 35. Jake had been driving my car nearly twice the speed limit while drunk. What happens now? We're investigating the crash. Your brother will be cited for DUI, reckless driving, and several other charges. Since this is his second DUI in 3 years, he's looking at serious consequences. Second DUI. I hadn't known about the first one. What about the car? You'll need to contact your insurance company. The vehicle will be towed to the impound lot once we finish processing the scene. I spent the rest of the night at the hospital, waiting for news about Jake's condition. He had a concussion, 3 broken ribs and a fractured wrist, but the doctors said he'd recover fully. When he was finally coherent enough to talk, his first words weren't an apology. Megan, thank God you're here. This is such a nightmare. I don't remember anything after leaving the restaurant. You were drunk, Jake. You crashed my car. I wasn't drunk. I had maybe 2 beers with dinner. I stared at him. The police said your blood alcohol was 0.14. That's nearly twice the legal limit. That can't be right. Those tests are wrong all the time. Even lying in a hospital bed with evidence of his drunk driving literally surrounding us, Jake was denying responsibility. My car is totaled, I said quietly. Insurance will cover it, right? It'll be fine. Jake, you could have killed someone. You could have killed yourself. But I didn't. It was just an accident. Just an accident. As if driving drunk at 65 miles per hour through a residential neighborhood was some unavoidable act of nature. I left the hospital without saying another word to him. Sunday afternoon, I was at my apartment trying to deal with insurance claims and police reports when my parents showed up unannounced. Megan, we need to talk about this situation with Jake, Mom said the moment I opened the door. What situation? You mean the situation where he stole my car and totaled it while driving drunk? He didn't steal your car, Dad said firmly. You gave him permission to borrow it. I gave him permission to drive to dinner and back. Not to go bar hopping and drive drunk at twice the speed limit. Mom settled onto my couch with the air of someone preparing to deliver a lecture. Jake made a mistake. A serious mistake. But he's family and family forgives family. He could have killed someone. But he didn't, Dad said. He's alive, no one else was hurt, and insurance will replace your car. Everything worked out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Everything worked out. My car is destroyed, Jake is facing criminal charges, and he could have killed an innocent person. Don't be so dramatic, Mom said. Accidents happen. Jake feels terrible about this. Is he? Because when I talked to him at the hospital, he denied being drunk and called it Just an accident. He's in shock, Dad explained. People say things they don't mean when they're traumatized. He's in shock? What about me? I worked 3 years to save for that car. Mom reached over and patted my hand condescendingly. And you'll work to save for another one. You're young, you have a good job, you'll bounce back. Jake's the one who could go to jail. Maybe he should go to jail. The room went dead silent. Megan, Mom said, her voice sharp with disapproval, that's a terrible thing to say about your brother. It's a terrible thing he did. This is his second DUI. He's lucky he didn't kill anyone. Second DUI? Dad looked confused. You didn't know? Jake got his first DUI 2 years ago. Apparently he never told you. My parents exchanged glances. That doesn't change anything, Mom said finally. He's still your brother and he still needs our support right now. What about my support? What about the fact that I just lost $45,000 because Jake decided to drive drunk in my car? The insurance will cover it, Dad said dismissively. Insurance doesn't cover the full value. I'll be lucky to get $35,000 and I still owe $38,000 on the loan. I'm going to end up paying for a car that doesn't exist anymore. That's not Jake's fault, Mom said. That's just how insurance works. I stared at her. It's absolutely Jake's fault. If he hadn't driven drunk, my car wouldn't be wrapped around a telephone pole. Look, Dad said using his reasonable parent voice, we understand you're upset. But Jake is going through enough right now without having to worry about family drama too. Family drama? This anger you're carrying. It's not healthy and it's not helping anyone. I'm not angry because I enjoy being angry. I'm angry because my brother destroyed my car while committing a felony. It was an accident. Driving drunk is not an accident. It's a choice. Mom stood up, clearly frustrated with my refusal to be reasonable. Megan, we came here hoping you'd be more mature about this. Jake needs to know his family supports him. Have you asked Jake if he's planning to support me? Like maybe help with the insurance shortfall or the fact that I now need to buy another car. Jake doesn't have that kind of money, Dad said. Jake had money for bar tabs. That's different. How is it different? Because. Dad struggled for a moment. Because Jake's going through a difficult time right now. He's been stressed about work and sometimes people make poor decisions when they're under pressure. So his stress justifies destroying my car? It explains it, Mom said. And as his family we need to show understanding and compassion. I looked at my parents, 2 people who had driven across town not to check on my well-being after losing my car, but to make sure I wasn't being too hard on the person who had destroyed it. Did either of you ask Jake to apologize to me? They were quiet. Did you suggest he take responsibility for the financial damage he caused? More silence. Did you even express disappointment in his behavior? Or did you just focus on making sure I don't hold him accountable? Megan, Mom said softly, we're trying to keep this family together. By asking me to pretend that what Jake did was okay? By asking you to forgive your brother and move forward. I can forgive Jake and still expect him to face consequences for his actions. What consequences? Dad asked. He's already been through a terrible car accident. He's hurt, he's facing legal problems. Hasn't he suffered enough? He's facing legal problems because he committed crimes. And I'm facing financial problems because of his choices. The financial problems are temporary, Mom said. Jake's legal problems could follow him for years. I realized something in that moment. My parents weren't just asking me to forgive Jake. They were asking me to pretend his drunk driving was my problem to solve, my loss to absorb, my responsibility to minimize. You know what? I said, standing up. You're right. Jake has suffered enough. My parents looked relieved. I'll make sure he doesn't have to suffer any more consequences for his actions. That's very mature of you, Dad said approvingly. I already called the police and filed a report about the unauthorized use of my vehicle. The relief on their faces turned to confusion. What does that mean? Mom asked. It means I've documented that Jake took my car without permission to go drinking, drove it while intoxicated and destroyed it through reckless driving. But you gave him permission. I gave him permission to drive to dinner and back. I didn't give him permission to go bar hopping or drive drunk. The police report reflects the actual facts of what happened. Dad's face was getting red. Megan, that's going to make Jake's legal situation much worse. Jake's choices made his legal situation worse. I just made sure there was an accurate record of what those choices were. You filed a police report against your own brother? Mom asked like I'd committed an unthinkable betrayal. I filed a police report about my stolen and destroyed vehicle. The fact that my brother was the one who stole and destroyed it is unfortunate, but it doesn't change the facts. This is vindictive, Dad said angrily. You're trying to get revenge on Jake because you're angry about your car. I'm trying to make sure the person responsible for destroying my car is held accountable for destroying my car. That's not revenge, that's justice. Justice. Mom practically spat the word. This is your brother we're talking about. And I'm your daughter. But apparently my financial well-being matters less than Jake's legal comfort. They tried arguing with me for another 20 minutes, alternating between guilt trips, accusations of vindictiveness, and lectures about family loyalty. Nothing they said changed my mind. As they were leaving, Mom turned back with one final attempt at manipulation. When Jake goes to prison because of your police report, I hope you can live with that. When Jake goes to prison, it'll be because he drove drunk and destroyed property, not because I documented what he did. They left and I didn't hear from anyone in my family for a week. During that week, I learned several interesting things from the police detective handling Jake's case. First, this wasn't Jake's second DUI, it was his third. He'd had one in college that my parents had quietly handled, one 2 years ago that he'd kept secret, and now this one. Second, Jake had been at 3 different bars that night, not just dinner with friends, like he'd told me. Security footage showed him visibly intoxicated at the last location before he got in my car. Third, Jake had been texting while driving in the moments before the crash. The police had recovered his phone and found messages he'd sent to friends bragging about driving his sister's fancy car. None of this surprised me, but it confirmed what I'd suspected. Jake's version of events was complete fiction. The surprise came the following Sunday when my parents invited me to family dinner, to work things out. I arrived at their house to find not just Mom, Dad, and Jake, but also my Aunt Susan, Uncle Bob, and my grandparents. It was clearly an intervention designed to pressure me into dropping the charges against Jake. Jake was sitting at the dining room table with his arm in a cast, looking appropriately sorry for himself. He gave me a weak smile when I walked in. "Megan, I'm so glad you came," Mom said, her tone artificially warm. "We're all here because we love both you and Jake and we want to find a way to heal this family." I took a seat across from Jake, noting that no one had asked how I was dealing with the loss of my car or the financial stress of the insurance situation. "Jake has something he wants to say to you," Dad announced. Jake looked up at me with what he probably thought was a sincere expression. "Megan, I'm really sorry about your car. I know how much it meant to you." "Thank you," I said. "And I want to make it right. Once my legal situation is resolved and I can get back to work, I'll help you with whatever the insurance doesn't cover." Several family members nodded approvingly at this generous offer. "How much do you think that will be?" I asked. "I don't know. A few $1,000s. Try 10,000. Maybe more." Jake's face fell. "Well, I'll do whatever I can. It might take a while." "How long?" "I don't know. A few years maybe." Aunt Susan jumped in. "The important thing is that Jake is taking responsibility and offering to make amends." "Is he taking responsibility for driving drunk?" The table went quiet. "Jake made a mistake," Mom started. "Jake made a choice," I corrected. 3 times. This is his 3rd DUI. Several family members looked shocked. Apparently, Jake had been more successful at hiding his drinking problem than I'd realized. "That's not what we're here to discuss," Dad said firmly. "We're here to discuss moving forward as a family." "Moving forward how?" Grandpa spoke up for the first time. "Your grandmother and I think you should drop this police report business. Jake's learned his lesson." "What lesson has he learned?" "That drinking and driving is dangerous," Grandma said. "He learned that lesson twice before. It didn't stop him from doing it again." "This time was different," Jake said. "This time I really understand how serious it could have been." "What's different about it?" "I could have been killed. You could have killed someone else. In fact, if there had been another car on Riverside Drive or if someone had been walking their dog, you probably would have killed them." "But that didn't happen," Mom said quickly. "Because Jake got lucky. Not because he was being responsible." Uncle Bob decided to try a different approach. "Megan, we all understand you're angry. But think about Jake's future. A felony conviction could ruin his career. Jake's choices could have ruined someone's life. Permanently. But they didn't, Jake said. And I promise it'll never happen again. I looked around the table at these people who were so focused on protecting Jake from consequences that they couldn't see how dangerous his behavior had become. Jake, how many times have you driven drunk that you didn't get caught? What do you mean? I mean this is your third DUI, but I'm guessing it's not your third time driving drunk. How many times did you get away with it? I don't know what you're talking about. You don't remember driving drunk any other times? Jake's face flushed. Sometimes people have a drink or two and still drive. That's not the same thing as drunk driving. Actually, it literally is the same thing. Megan, Mom said sharply, stop attacking your brother. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm trying to understand how we got to the point where Jake thought it was okay to take my car and drive drunk in it. He didn't think it was okay, Dad said. He made an error in judgment. 3 times. This isn't helping anyone, Aunt Susan said. What's done is done. The question is, how do we move forward? We move forward by Jake facing the consequences of his actions and getting the help he needs to stop driving drunk. He doesn't need help, Mom said. He just needs family support. He needs both. And part of facing consequences is dealing with the legal system without his family interfering. The room erupted in protests. Everyone started talking at once about family loyalty, forgiveness, and the importance of supporting each other during difficult times. I waited for them to quiet down, then stood up. I can see this dinner isn't actually about healing the family, I said. It's about pressuring me to protect Jake from the consequences of his actions. That's not true, Grandpa said. Really? Did anyone here suggest that Jake needs professional help for his drinking problem? Silence. Did anyone suggest that he should voluntarily surrender his license until he proves he can be trusted not to drive drunk? More silence. Did anyone even acknowledge that he could have killed innocent people? Megan, Mom said, her voice pleading, he's your brother. And I'm your daughter. But apparently his comfort matters more than my safety or my financial security. I headed for the door, then turned back. Just so you know, the police report I filed isn't what's going to get Jake in trouble. His blood alcohol level, the excessive speed, the property damage, and his prior convictions are what's going to get him in trouble. But your report makes it worse, Dad said. My report makes it accurate. As I reached the door, Jake called out, Megan, wait. I stopped. What do you want from me? What would make you happy? I turned around to look at him, really look at him. He was 28 years old. Sitting in my parents' dining room with his extended family rallying around to protect him from accountability. He just destroyed my car while driving drunk, and his biggest concern was whether I was going to make his legal problems worse. I want you to stop driving drunk, I said. I want you to get help for your drinking problem. And I want you to take full responsibility for what you did to my car. I am taking responsibility. I said I'd pay you back. You said you'd help with whatever insurance doesn't cover, maybe in a few years if you can. That's not taking responsibility. That's offering to help with the consequences of taking responsibility. What else can I do? You can stop asking me to lie to the police about what happened. Jake looked genuinely confused. I never asked you to lie. Everyone in this room is asking me to lie. You're asking me to pretend you had permission to take my car drinking. You're asking me to pretend this was an unavoidable accident instead of the predictable result of drunk driving. You're asking me to minimize your choices so you face fewer consequences for making them. I looked around the room one more time. The police report stays. Jake will face whatever consequences the legal system determines are appropriate. And I will not be covering any of the financial damage his choices caused. I left them sitting there and drove home in my old Honda Civic, feeling lighter than I had since the night my phone rang at 2:47 a.m. 3 weeks later, the police officers showed up during Sunday dinner at my parents' house. I wasn't there. I'd stopped attending family dinners after the intervention, but Jake called me afterward, panicked and angry. Did you know they were going to arrest me at dinner? He demanded. Who arrested you? The police. They came to Mom and Dad's house with handcuffs. Jake, I didn't know when they were going to arrest you. I just knew they were going to arrest you. This is your fault. If you hadn't filed that police report. If you hadn't driven drunk, there wouldn't have been a police report to file. Everyone saw me get arrested. Mom was crying, Dad was yelling at the officers, and the neighbors came out to see what was happening. I'm sorry that was embarrassing for everyone. Are you? Because it seems like you wanted this to happen. I wanted you to face appropriate consequences for driving drunk and destroying my car. How those consequences were delivered wasn't up to me. Jake was quiet for a moment. The lawyer says I'm probably going to jail because of your police report. The lawyer's wrong. You're probably going to jail because this is your third DUI and you caused significant property damage while driving at dangerous speeds. But your report made it worse. My report made it honest. Jake hung up on me. The trial happened 4 months later. I testified about the circumstances under which Jake had borrowed my car and the extent of the damage he'd caused. I didn't embellish anything, but I also didn't minimize anything. Jake was convicted of DUI, reckless driving, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. He received 18 months in jail, 3 years of probation, and was required to complete alcohol counseling and community service. He was also ordered to pay restitution for the full value of my car. My family was furious with me. According to them, I had destroyed Jake's life by telling the truth about what he'd done. But something interesting happened during the months after Jake's sentencing. Other family members started reaching out to me privately. My cousin Lisa called to tell me that Jake had driven drunk with her kids in the car 2 years earlier, but she'd been too afraid of family backlash to say anything. Uncle Bob admitted that he'd suspected Jake had a serious drinking problem for years but hadn't wanted to create family drama by bringing it up. Even my grandmother eventually acknowledged that maybe jail would force Jake to get the help he needed. Jake served 14 months of his 18-month sentence. He was released early for good behavior and completion of the prison's alcohol treatment program. The first call I got from him after his release was different from any conversation we'd had before. "Megan, I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "Okay. Not just for crashing your car. For everything. For lying about what happened, for letting Mom and Dad pressure you to drop the charges, for never taking responsibility for any of it. Thank you." The counselor in prison helped me understand something. She said that family members who protect addicts from consequences aren't helping them, they're enabling them. I was quiet, not sure where this was going. She said, "You were the only person in our family who actually tried to help me by letting me face the consequences of my actions. How do you feel about that now?" "Honestly, I'm grateful. I'm sober for the first time in 8 years. I'm in AA, and I have a job that doesn't involve driving. None of that would have happened if you'd let Mom and Dad convince you to drop the charges." "What about the restitution?" "I'm paying you back $50 a week. It's going to take a long time, but I'll pay every penny." And he has. Jake has been making payments consistently for 2 years now. He's also been sober for 2 years, attends AA meetings regularly, and has rebuilt his relationship with honesty and accountability. My parents have slowly come around to understanding that protecting Jake from consequences was actually hurting him. They still think I was too harsh, but they acknowledge that Jake needed professional help that family support alone couldn't provide. The insurance settlement did end up short, just like I'd predicted. I lost about $12,000 on the car, which Jake's restitution payments are slowly covering. But more importantly, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their destructive behavior, even when everyone else is pressuring you to protect them from accountability. Jake could have killed someone that night. If my police report contributed to consequences that prevented him from driving drunk again, then it was worth every uncomfortable family dinner and angry phone call. Sometimes saving someone means letting them hit rock bottom instead of providing a soft landing that allows them to keep making dangerous choices. Family doesn't mean protecting each other from consequences. It means caring enough about each other to insist on accountability, even when accountability is painful.